Hey, what's up, guys? So today we are actually going to be reading in Luke chapter 9, starting in verse 49, if y'all want to go ahead and find that. But I wanted to take a minute and just talk to you guys for a second and let you know that, especially with y'all coming back into school and, starting to be in classes again and to be, a lot more social, and you're going to be hearing a lot more things than you did over the summer and different opinions and things like that. This next set of verses really lays out a lot of the ways that we respond to things as people. And if there's one thing that I could have you guys really learn and understand, it is this: that the Bible has so much wisdom in it for how to live your life and how to walk according to the order that God has set forth for you. And that order is what leads to, things in life that keep you safe and sound, things that build and are loving and peaceful, and things that bring about the proper order for the way that we're supposed to live and interact with each other, because this is written through the power of the author of life. And they're not just stories that are told. There's so many lessons that come from this, especially when you look at the actual way that Christ lived. And in this, starting in Luke 9 verse 49, it says, "Now John answered and said, 'Master, we saw someone casting out demons in your name, and we forbade him because he does not follow with us.' But Jesus said to him, 'Do not forbid him, for he who is not against us is on our side.' Now it came to pass, when the time had come for him to be received up, that he steadfastly set his face to go to Jerusalem, and sent messengers before his face. And as they went, they entered a village of the Samaritans to prepare for him. But they did not receive him, because his face was set for the journey to Jerusalem. And when his disciples James and John saw this, they said, 'Lord, do you want us to command fire to come down from heaven and consume them, just as Elijah did?' But he turned and rebuked them and said, 'You do not know what manner of spirit you are of, for the Son of Man did not come to destroy men's lives, but to save them.' And they went to another village." And guys, there's a few things that come through that. First of all, when we look at the very beginning, when John was telling Jesus that, hey, we saw some guys that were casting out demons, and they were using your name. Like, we told them to stop. And Jesus says, don't tell them to stop. If they're not against us, then they're for us. And that's a very human kind of response, where we see, like the disciples wanted to kind of claim it. They felt like they had something that was theirs. They had received the power of God, and they were like, and see, they had never cast down fire from heaven. They had never done anything like that, but they had heard the stories of Elijah, all the stories from the Old Testament about the power of God that he had. He was one of the greatest prophets that had lived before Jesus' day. And they were almost, in a way, asking Christ if they could have that same power, if they could use that power afterwards in the next couple of verses. But that's where their mind's at. And just before this, they were arguing about who was going to be the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. And so you can see there's this problem of pride and power. And you see what happens when people are given the power of God, when people are given this authority to reign over, to reign over the dominion that's before them. When they're given that, we don't know how to use it properly. We don't know how to use what's been given to us, and that's a process of maturity that we go through. But when they said this, Jesus is essentially telling them, look, if they're doing that, let them do it. Like, it's not a surprise. It's not something that was like special given just to the disciples. Christ was saying, look, if he's saying the right things, if he's doing the right thing, then let him do it. Why would you stop somebody who's on the right path? Why would you prevent somebody who could help us? Why would you not see that and see the good that's in that and encourage that and take joy in that and be happy about it? Why would you see that as something negative when they're on the same mission that you're on? Don't hold it in, let it out. All right, but then when they come after that, they're walking through, and Christ had set his face for Jerusalem, but he was sending out the messengers before him, and the Samaritan village turned him away. They didn't accept what the disciples were saying, what the messengers were bringing to them. And then that's when the disciples come up and they say, should we call down this fire from heaven? Should we destroy them because they don't agree with us? And Jesus once again looks at them and says, you do not know what spirit you're of. The Son of Man has come to save lives, not to destroy them. And it's in that moment where he's saying, why would you want to destroy somebody who doesn't see things the same way that you do? It will move to the next village, and let our actions speak for us. Let the word spread. Like the mission that Christ had was to reveal the words of the Father, to reveal the Father to the world. And he did that throughout his life. And he did that in one of his final prayers or talks with the disciples. I can't remember which it was, but he says, I have given them, or I guess it was a prayer, but he was saying, I've given them everything that you have told me. I've revealed your will and revealed your word, or something like that. I'm sorry, guys, don't quote me on it. But he's talking about, revealing God to the world, to the people that were with him. And that's how we're supposed to walk in this world. We're not supposed to see ourselves as cliques and separated and segmented. We're not supposed to see that. We're supposed to encourage people that are on the right path, and those that are not on the right path, the ones who don't get it, right? You don't destroy them. You don't crush them. You don't talk bad about them. You don't, put them down. You give them the word. You try to build them up. You try to help them. But if they won't receive it, you move on. It's not a struggle where we're trying to convince people to believe the way that we believe. We're here to tell them the good news, and we're here to spread the word to them, and let our actions speak for themselves. Let the way that we shine light into the world speak for itself. Because see, the power of God that is within you is the power to take what was chaotic, what's crazy in the world, and to bring order to it. And that's what God does in the beginning. He takes what was formless and void, and he makes it good. He puts things in their proper order. And we do this through, essentially, there's a parable that Jesus talks about, a man plowing a field, and he discovers some treasure. And so he immediately buries the treasure, goes and sells everything that he had, and then he comes back and buys the field, right? And that's when we walk in the world, guys. We discover the kingdom of God. We discover the goodness of God and reveal that to others by drawing that out, by seeing it, by acknowledging it, and by building up those that are around us. A lot of times you'll see stuff in the media, in the news, people, when we talk to each other, we like to talk about the things that are negative, right? Like, we like to talk about the problems that are going on. The news especially loves to report about the issues that are going on. But, we're called to be more interested in the solutions that are given, the steps that can be taken to correct it, what can be done. Instead of dwelling on what's going on, look at what could be done, to correct it. I had a conversation with a friend of mine not too long ago, talking about some of the things that were going on in the world. And, the conversation started out as a lot of just, there's this problem and there's that problem and this is going on, and can you believe this, and have you heard this? And at a certain point, you realize that the conversation isn't doing anything other than just venting, right? It's like a wheel that's turning and it's not going anywhere, because you can talk about issues and things like that over and over and over, but then when we start being geared more towards a solution, right, towards a purpose, being directed towards a goal of something, that's when you start to see the true Christian, right? The true Christian mindset is one of those that is there to enhance and to make better and to be a peacemaker. And so we have to remind ourselves to direct conversation on that path towards a goal, towards a fix. And a lot of times what you'll see is that when you ask somebody something about that, like, well, what should be done? What do you think we can do to fix it? A lot of times people kind of take a step back and they don't know, because they're so used to talking in this cycle of, what's going on, that they never stop to think about how it can be corrected. What can we do? It's easy to kind of pawn it off on the government, or to pawn it off on a much bigger group, right, or society or organization, but it starts with us, and it starts with you speaking life to the world that's around us, to the people that are around you, being dedicated to that discovery of the goodness of God, which starts within, right? You have to know that you are put in order, that you cleanse your mind daily, that there's nothing that you're holding on to that might skew your vision, right, or skew the way that you're thinking, and really take a good self-assessment and assess the world, and then assess what's going on. But when we do that, guys, this is true in business, this is true in life in general, this is biblical. But when you can impact the world to the degree which you yourself are in order, and to the degree which you manage what's going on around you. Now, the biblical version of that, right, is when Jesus talks and he says, it's the parable of the servants with the talents, but he says to the one servant that they were faithful with a few things, now they will be ruler over many things, right? It means when you're entrusted with the few things that you have, what's around you, your friends, your family, you can start with that group of people. As you speak to that, and as you speak to, revealing what can be done and the goodness that is there, and you're building up those that are around you, and you're trying to be a peacemaker in the things that you can control in your circle of influence, even if it's just speaking an idea, well, those people will speak that same idea to others, and it builds this sort of network of connecting, God with the ways of the world. And when you connect those two, guys, that's the peacemaking and the correcting of order, the revealing of the ways that things should go and the ways that things should be handled. And I know some of you guys will look at this and say, I don't see anything in the Bible that talks about what's going on today. It's kind of outdated, right? They're not having issues with social media, and they're not having issues with, the things that we see in the news. But guys, it's the same. It's not the same story, right? It's the same application. There's what we see going on in the world today is very much spoken to in the Bible, because it's speaking to the nature of humanity. And guys, that hasn't changed. That has stayed the same throughout all of these years. Just the things that we do are different now. The problems that we have, the way society is constructed is different. So you see things that are in different ways, but it is the same nature and the same order that we're called to walk in, the same life that we're supposed to live, in the same way that we're supposed to build each other up, is the same now just as much as it ever has been. And so when you guys see these things and you see these questions come up and you're talking to people about these things that are going on that are very much in the headlines today, talk to people about what can be done and where we should move and solutions, and don't get caught up in these conversations that are just empty of any kind of meaning other than building up some kind of emotion behind it, some kind of emotional response to, you know, what's seen or heard. But let's look at what can solve that problem, what can move us forward, what can join us together, what can actually unify people and unify the country, ways that we move forward. This is what we should focus on, and this is where our minds should be at, and this is where the Christian mind especially should be at, seeking the things that are noble and worthy of praise. Seeking, that doesn't mean just always be optimistic and happy. That's not realistic. That's not how that's going to go. But what that means is that you should always focus on the things that are improving. You should focus on the things that bring solutions. You should focus on the things that bring peace. You should focus on seeing the good in somebody instead of seeing the bad. You should keep your mind in this realm of thinking and not get caught up and washed away with the flood of, you know, kind of emotional, cyclical, meaningless kind of talk. Now, recognize that some people get very upset about these things, and empathize, sympathize with them, feel what they're feeling, but help bring them up, help build them up, help encourage them, help bring peace to their mind and their heart. And just be somebody that is there to really make a difference and want to make a difference. Be somebody that has a purpose. Okay? But I love you guys, and I will talk to you all on Wednesday.